So it's the first Sunday in fall, and we're going to do Big Daddy's risotto in the style of Milan, Northern Italy. Yesterday I started a thick onion and veal and beef broth. And of course you salt it a little bit, and that's going to make that's going to be a great stock to use for the rice to suck up. I've got some Italian sausages cooking. We're going to cut that up and put it in the nearly final product. Of course, we're going to start it out using a light olive oil. We don't need a heavy olive oil for cooking purposes. Little porcini mushrooms. We're going to start with some garlic and onion in the olive oil. And it's got a little sage, a little fresh and organic sage mixed in. We got some oyster mushrooms cut up, probably cup and a half, close to 2 cups. And we've got shiitake mushrooms cut up, probably closer to a little bit over 2 cups. And then portobello mushrooms. These will all melt very well into the risotto stock. Now we're going to use some arborio rice, and we're going to mix it with some Uncle Ben's long grain. And here's our saffron that we're going to mix in with the rice as we go. And of course, we're going to use a lot of red wine. We're going to put the asparagus in towards the very end, and we're going to put the spinach in the bottom of the bowl and put the final product over the top of it. It'll kind of melt into it. Make a nice, beautiful, and unique risotto Milanese style. An optional ingredient, I also use a little salami. You don't want to put too much, it'll get greasy. But this will give it a nice flavor enhancement. And I have the Parmigiano Reggiano cheese to use, and the porcini mushrooms. I think I mentioned that already. I use about a half a cup of those. Now this is for feeding like 10 people. We're going to feed a lot of people with this, and it's a great Sunday dish if you're going to have the family over. And of course, I forgot to mention, if you have some prosciutto, you want to put that in too with the salami. Now we're going to put this in earlier on. We'll show how that's done. And of course, this is not an ingredient other than to top it afterwards. This is imported Parmigiano Reggiano, and it's very nice. So we've got the sausages going, and basically we made the stock last night, and this morning we took it out of the fridge, took the fat off the top. We're going to have enough fat in there with these other ingredients. You could make this with vegetable stock, leave the sausages out, put a couple different types of vegetables in there, and make it a completely vegan or vegetarian type meal with no meat whatsoever. Of course, we're a bunch of meat eaters. And my grandkids, obviously, I want to get them lots of protein to grow big and strong. So we're going to start the process in a little. So I have the broth ready. Now, what I do, I'll pull the majority of the onion and all of the meat out, the veal and the beef, and I'm going to be putting this back in with the sausages into the risotto mixture as we go. And we're getting pretty close. I've got my meat in here, and my other meat's here. The wine, everything ready to rock and roll. I'm going to grate some cheese up, and then we're going to get going in the big bowl, the big pot. Okay, so we've got a half a stick of butter in here, and we covered the bottom with light olive oil, cooking oil, and we're going to put a little bit of garlic in. We're going to get this sizzling. I'm going to stir it up, And then we're gonna put in the onion and the sage next. And we've got all of our mushrooms, our prosciutto and salami, our sauzites, and the meat that we use to cook the stock, the veal and the beef. I'm gonna sprinkle the saffron on the mixture of the rice, and we'll get it all going here shortly. So we've got the onion and the sage, the garlic and the olive oil all cooking, good base here. We've got our stock warming up even a little bit more, closer to boiling, and we're gonna start putting in the mushrooms, and I'm gonna start with the portobello, and then I'm gonna go to the rest, the oyster, the shiitake. Now you gotta I cut the roots off of all the mushrooms. I don't have any roots in here. It wouldn't be nice and soft. And then I'll put the rest of the mushrooms in, the porcini, and then we'll start putting the wine in. Actually, the wine's gonna go in after the portobellos. I'm gonna put a whole cup in, and we're gonna put more in as we go. Now, this is enough to feed an army, because I've got several people and grandkids and children coming over, but you can cut this recipe in half. You can cut it into quarters. You can always add a little extra oil in as well. Now, as soon as these portobellos get cooking up here a little bit longer, I'm going to dump the wine in, and then it's going to emit a wonderful smell. And then we'll go with the rest of the mushrooms from there. So the wine's in. I got about probably around a cup of wine in. And now we're going to go with the oyster and the shiitake mushrooms. Now we're gonna put a little more wine in. We can put a little dash of olive oil in, maybe a couple, 3 or 4 tablespoons as we go, as the food's gonna start sucking all this up. But we're gonna be going with the broth in a while. I add a little more wine. It's doing nicely. These flavors are all gonna merge. Now we have our lunch meats that we're putting in. Not a lot. You don't want it to impart a greasy taste. And the dried porcinis. We started with dried porcinis. And you could soak those in wine as well. And then we're gonna go with our meats. Now I lightly salted the broth, obviously, and I lightly salted the meat after it came out of the broth, and as well as, well, not the sauzites, as well as lightly salting the mushrooms before they went in early on in the cutting process. And now I've got the saffron on the rice, ready to go. I'm gonna try to dump in the arborio first and follow it up with a long grain. Now I haven't put any broth in yet. Okay, now the sauzites going in along with the veal and the beef. And the asparagus as well. Then we're going to start adding the broth and the wheat, or the broth and the rice. We're going to dump about 8 cups of broth into the mixture, and then we're going to start putting the rice in. So I got most of the arborio rice in. Rice is gonna blow up. Right now it's sucking all the flavors in. Now we're gonna cook it on not high heat, but above middle heat. So it'll be low in the low-high range. Now we're gonna get the rest of the rice in. It's starting to get a yellow hue from all of the saffron. And now we're gonna put in some more broth. And you need to be stirring this, not continuously, but almost continuously. Stir it like at least 30 to 40% of the time it's cooking. Give it a good stir. Now, most of our broth is gone, but not all of it. As this starts to soak up more and more, then we'll add the last bit of the broth, and we're gonna add some more wine in right now. Don't be cheap with the wine in the cooking process, other than the price of the wine. Should be under a wine that you would drink. And that I would not drink. Okay, this is how it's looking. We're getting ready to turn the heat off, and it's gonna suck up almost all of the broth. And we're gonna add a little bit more wine. You can see how much wine we've used so far. That'll about do it. And I added a little more salt to taste. This is what the final product looks like. Now we're gonna serve it in a bowl with some spinach. Okay. Put a little cheese on top of that. Okay. This is the finished product. Risotto. Fall time. Very good. Bon appetit. Ciao.